This is Perp back with another video, and I just finished the final season, or season 2 of Pantheon. And yes, this is the final season, and yes, I will be discussing spoilers, but I gotta just kind of rant for a minute just on just the whole cancellation of Pantheon due to AMC, which AMC had a fucking banger on their hands with the very first season, and they didn't really push or promote the first season. Amazon ends up picking up Pantheon, and oddly enough, it only releases in New Zealand and Australia. No word if it's ever going to get released in the US, which is just so weird. So if you're not in those countries, you're not going to see it pop up on your Amazon Prime. You're going to have to find it elsewhere, which that's what I did. And man, this was a fantastic season. It picks up right where the last one stopped, where the internet was off. Everybody's kind of in chaos. There's just all this tension brewing. Yeah, so the first 2 episodes are kind of dealing with that, dealing with Caspian trying to figure out the flaw and how to remedy that, just find the cure for that. And we also have Maddie kind of going through her own phase with her losing her father yet again, and not really wanting to, have to deal with that pain again, even though she gets brought back into it when Caspian is able to find out the cure. And the cure is pretty much a code for love, and it makes all the sense. And what comes out of that, we get a lot of different reveals, as far as Maddie having like a automated or a AI sister, which is so bizarre, called Mist, and she is a key to a lot of things. And Caspian and Maddie going on these journeys to find these other UIs and trying to figure out who they can make God and who they can trust, curing other people that have the flaw, and also seeing what the other side of things are doing, like Julian, and them bringing back Steven and having his brain preserved and whatnot, bringing him back, him being one of the big bads, probably the big bad. And I thought it was brilliant how they chose to do that. You have the clone versus the actual Steven, and these two kind of clashing, and them trying to stop Steven from destroying the whole world, like committing genocide, and seeing how powerful he is in this UI world. It was just so fascinating to kind of see all these different stories kind of play out in the very beginning, and where things kind of escalate once you get to like episode 4 and beyond. The last 2 episodes is a lot to kind of dive deep into. I'll try to do my best, but like I said, the first 3 episodes, we just kind of are figuring out the world. Like, the world is kind of worrisome of these UIs, and if it gets in the wrong hands, we already know what that could do, because of Shonda and what he did. And once it goes back online, it's very fascinating how things just start to end up playing out, and it's just ramping up. It's one thing to the next, and seeing all these different other UIs, and what really motivates them is love. That's the whole theme of this season, is love. It really is the cure for everything. And then we finally get that showdown between Steven and Caspian, where Caspian has kind of went through all his different options, and then he decides for himself, like, I'm just going to upload myself, which means he's going to have to sacrifice himself. If you didn't know that equals death. And some other characters definitely take like a backseat for the most part in the early episodes, like Ellen. She is kind of doing this whole press run, and Peter's kind of dealing with his stuff with the government and whatnot. A lot of people are just being pressed, and I like there's just the stakes in this where you have people trying to take out Caspian throughout this whole entire series, because you can't have two Stevens out there. That's problematic. And yeah, and you also have Renee. She's like a super fan of Steven, so she kind of plays as the right hand to Steven, trying to get herself uploaded. You know what I'm saying? She's completely said, fuck Caspian at this point. So the first 6 episodes, it's all leading up to that, the clash between Steven and Caspian. And Caspian is able to destroy him, but also there's another threat that the government made. It's called Safe Surf, also known as the Swarm, which this kills UIs and stuff. This is an even bigger threat than Steven. And once Caspian and Steven have this clash, they also clash with the Swarm. And once like Caspian pretty much dies, Mist, which is Maddie's sister, she is a really dope character. She's a very pivotal character. It jumps 20 years when we get to episode 7 that she kind of helped bring him back and helps him catch up to what's happening, and how a lot more people have embraced more digital future, where 20 years from the events where Caspian sacrificed himself to take down Steven, there's now 4 billion people that have uploaded, and there's like 300 something CIs, or just things that are like missed. And I find that so fascinating. And then Caspian getting reunited with a much older version of Maddie, and Maddie just being so sad and going through, you could tell that she's been going through a lot of pain. And also come to find out that they have a son. And that's another thing they've also focused on throughout this season, is Caspian and Maddie's relationship growing stronger and stronger to the point where they have a kid. And even them kind of going through exactly like what Maddie went through in that whole entire process mentally. And she was almost about to give up her son Dave, naming him after her father. And her having to deal with all this pain, losing her father several times, even in this season for the last time, or is it for the last time, until we see him again in the last couple episodes. And also with this whole Safe Surf thing kind of going rogue, that's another thing, that when Caspian gets brought back, he also still has some of the antiviral stuff attached to him, so he has to kind of slow things down. But once he gets caught up, it kind of speeds up the process, and this whole anti-surf swarm thing kind of goes haywire and starts just murking humans, bro. It was insane to kind of see that. And it ends up what ends up happening is Dave gets caught in the crossfire, Maddie's son. And then we kind of zoom out and we see the show just kind of time jump into different periods, like a 2,000 something years into the future, then 16,000, and then 100 something thousand. And what gets revealed is Maddie ends up being God, and it's like we go back to the very first episode. And it's just so fascinating how all this was brought about. And we kind of talk about, is there an afterlife? What else how far can we push technology, or how far can consciousness go? And I like how they just play with all these different ideas, because episode 8, the finale, is something I'm going to be thinking about, because I understand what they were going for, Maddie pretty much being God, but she doesn't really see herself like that, or that whole question, are we all just living in a simulation? You know what I'm saying? And dealing with death and being able to move on. And it's just such a fascinating story overall, and it's just so much to unpack. But this is one of those shows that's going to constantly make you think about it after the fact, and you're going to rewatch this over and over again to kind of understand what's going on. And I like in the future that Julian is like the last person to kind of survive, and he has this resistance that blew up this this center with hundreds of millions of people and trying to start a war between the UIs and the humans and stuff like that. And just everything, how this all came about, I thought this was a brilliant way to kind of end this series, where I was kind of wondering like how long was this series planning on going, because I don't see it going anywhere past where they stopped at with this final episode, where even, you know, Maddie gets to reunite with her father David, and why David went to Caspian in episode 7, and how it's almost like a loop, like almost a time loop. There's all these different outcomes and possibilities. It's such a fascinating show. It's just a shame that it's not going to get that push, even though I know probably why, because there's a lot of things that reflect on what's been going on in the world in the last like 3 years in this series, and where we could possibly go as far as like AI, and, you know, can you upload your subconscious into a system, you know what I'm saying, and them dealing with quote unquote jabs and vaccinations, viruses, and trying to cure certain things. Overall, brilliant show. I hope I broke that down the best that I could. You know, it's a lot of information that they give you, especially those last 2 episodes, but the theme of it was love and people just reconnecting with one another, and what is the meaning of life in general. It's just so much to kind of dissect and break down, and it's up to you how you want to kind of view it, you know what I'm saying? But if you have seen this final season or season 2, let me know how you feel about it, and let me know how you guys feel about Pantheon as a whole. Till next time, I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.